What's up YouTube, Jeff back again from DopeTechDaily.com. Today I'm bringing you guys my official full review of the Blackberry Key 2. Now if you've been following me for a while, you know last year I did a really long 40-minute review of the Key 1. It was a new type of form factor for Android. This year I'm going to try to slim down the time of the review a little bit, still give you all the same information. So I want to start off the video by getting into some of the similarities between the Key 2 and the Key 1, just so we get those out of the way. And then I'll talk about all of the important differences and improvements. As usual, I have a Google Keep document with all of my points here. Of course, I'll elaborate throughout the video, but I'll drop this below if you want to check it out. So in terms of the similarities to the Key 1, the build quality and the form factor are obviously very similar. Physical keyboard with this 4.5-inch display. Fingerprint sensor is built into the spacebar. On the back, you do have a very similar setup with the Blackberry logo there. The material itself is a little more grippy here on the back. It's matte still. You have a dual camera now on the back with the LED flash. You do have straighter sides on the Key 2. It's not as rounded. Same thing at the bottom. There's a little extra space here, which makes it nice and easy to grip. You do have the convenience key, the power button, and the volume rocker all on one side now. But otherwise, the build hasn't changed too much. The keyboard has gotten a little larger, the overall size of the keys. We'll talk more about that when we get to the keyboard part of the review. The next thing is the software. So the software I loved last year hasn't changed much. You do have a new version of Android, of course. You've got Android 8.1 on board. So of course you've got the latest security patches as well. You still have the ability to do a dark mode, of course. You can do that from the home screen settings. Just long press here, go into settings. The other thing you can do is assign icon packs, which is something I really loved about the software UI that BlackBerry offered last year. All of the great BlackBerry goodies, including BlackBerry Hub, BlackBerry Messenger, all those apps that you love, productivity tab, slide out here from the side. All of those things are integrated, of course, along with DTech Security Suite. So the software hasn't evolved much from the Key 1, but you've got newer software, and of course that's important when it comes to the security side of things. The front-facing camera hasn't really changed much, so you're going to get the same selfie quality as last year. I know most people with Blackberries don't care too much about that, but some of you out there might. Of course, the rear camera is now a dual camera, and we'll talk more about that in my full detailed camera review a little bit later in the video. The next thing is the battery life. So the phone still sports a 3500 milliamp hour battery. It's 5 milliamp hours less than last year, but of course in practical use that doesn't really make any difference. Also, the Snapdragon 660 is a more efficient chipset, so it actually still gets around the same battery life, perhaps even better in some circumstances. I get about 7 hours screen on time when I'm using this for my everyday usage, even watching media in addition to my productivity. And of course the display is still the same 4.5-inch IPS LCD display. Nothing about it has really changed. It's the exact same panel, so there really isn't much to say or comment on from the Key 1 to the Key 2 in that regard. The next thing, performance. So this is the first big difference from the Key 1 to the Key 2. The Key 1 was very sluggish in day-to-day operations, especially with multitasking and having apps sort of, reload whenever you're doing a bunch of different things. It had struggled with only 3 gigs of RAM with the model that originally launched here in the US. This one has 6 gigs of RAM and an upgraded Snapdragon 660, and I'm happy to report that apps launch much quicker, and I haven't really noticed any sort of issues with apps reloading, etc. There's really no problems at all. The 660 seems to be perfectly capable of multitasking, gaming, any productivity that you want to do, and the 6 gigs of RAM make sure that you don't have those app reloads. So I'm happy to report that the productivity is a huge improvement from the Key 1 to the Key 2, and that's actually one of the main reasons I would say it's worth upgrading. The next huge upgrade is the keyboard improvement. So I talked about this a little bit before, but the keyboard has actually gotten a little bit larger in terms of the keys themselves. They're 20% taller, which makes it a lot easier to type on these keys, and the tactile response of the keys is much better as well. They're not as mushy as the keys were on the Key 1, and the Key 1 wasn't really that bad in my opinion. I didn't think the keys were mushy on the Key 1 by any stretch of the imagination, but these are much more tactile and feel like past BlackBerry phones, and if you're a BlackBerry user, you're going to feel more at home with this keyboard. Also, because they're larger and now they're matte instead of glossy, it's easier to lock onto one key. You won't find your fingers sliding too much. If you're a real physical keyboard lover, you're really going to enjoy that. Now, the one thing that I did not love about the keyboard is that the keys have gotten improved tactileness and responsiveness. They're not as mushy, but the keyboard does still have the same space bar. And that could be because the fingerprint sensor is in the space bar, but the fingerprint sensor definitely feels a lot different when you strike it than the other keys. And it can be a little jarring sometimes going from one key to the space bar, and it's just a little bit of a jarring move because it feels so much different. It doesn't have the same sort of feedback. I definitely like to see them improve that. Again, it's possible that that's because the fingerprint sensor is stored there. Maybe there's not much they can do. The other big improvement is the speed key. So of course last year you could launch apps from the home screen by just pressing a key, set up your shortcuts. It's very nice. But now when you're in another app, you can actually use the speed key, which is located right next to the symbol key down here. You can hold that down along with the shortcut key, and it takes you back to the app which you're trying to get to. As you can see, very, very nice feature. Instead of just accessing it from the home screen like this, if I'm in another app like Chrome, then I can access it by holding down the two at the same time. Now I have noticed that occasionally with the speed key, you will notice a little lag switching between apps. That's one of the only places I've actually noticed any lag on the Key 2. Sometimes it takes a little longer than others to switch to that shortcut app, depending on what app you're in at the given time. But the speed key is a huge reason to consider an upgrade. I think it's a really great feature for productivity. The next thing, let's actually talk about the audio first, and I'll get to the camera last. The audio for the built-in mics and the bottom firing speaker. So last year I talked quite a bit about audio quality. The bottom firing speaker wasn't the greatest. It has been improved a little bit this year. The loudness of the speaker is a little bit better, and the clarity as well at higher volumes. So if you use this phone to watch videos or other types of media, you'll definitely notice the difference.
What's up YouTube, Jeff back again from DopeTechDaily.com, and it is that time. It's time for Android P developer.
So definitely better clarity and loudness on the bottom, still bottom firing speaker obviously, so it's nothing like a stereo speaker, but it's definitely better than last year. I think they made an improvement there. In terms of the call quality with the mics, seems to be much improved. I haven't had any issues with calls. Everything seems clear. People, when I've called them, have had no problems hearing me, so I don't think that seems to be an issue this year as far as I can tell. The next thing is the audio over headphones, and this was another really big issue last year. So the Key 2 does feature a 3.5mm headphone jack, just like the Key 1 did last year. But last year, the Key 1 had some issues with the amp inside, causing some distortion and also volume issues. So I'm happy to report that this year I've tested 5 different pairs of headphones. None of them have had any issues with distortion at high volumes. The only problem is I will say that the actual volume loudness at the max volume seems to be a little bit less than last year. That might have been done in order to reduce some of the distortion issues that they had. So that could be a problem. I would still like to have a little bit more loudness at the top volume. It's not as loud as flagships like the Galaxy S9 or the Huawei P20 Pro if you plug in their little adapter. But overall it's passable, and I think they definitely made an improvement in terms of the overall clarity. So people who are audiophiles and want to enjoy a Blackberry Key 2 will definitely be happy to hear about that. The next thing is the camera. So the camera, of course, they added a second sensor. You've got a dual camera here on the back. Unfortunately, they had to change the main sensor size in order to accommodate the second one, and there's actually some trade-offs between the two. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and play you guys a little slideshow of a few photos I took. Then we'll talk about those photos and sort of see what's going on with the camera on the Key 2. Alright guys, we're back. So let's take a couple photos here and just look at some of the things I'd like to point out. This photo here was taken in very good lighting outside here in the Arizona daylight. You can see amazing detail here on this barbecue chicken from the 4th of July. The Key 2 does take very good photos, I would say, in good lighting. In good lighting, I would say it's actually better than the OnePlus 6. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of that camera, so I don't know if that really says a lot. Also, the portrait mode is very good. I took this one here. You see you get some nice bokeh, It's a nice background blur with the portrait mode, and it's not too soft. It's actually very comparable to portrait mode on the Galaxy S9 Plus, for instance, and I think that's pretty good. However, the Key 2 does struggle in low light situations. So you can notice here, even when I took this photo here in the shade, there's some detail loss here. If you actually zoom in, look at the case, you guys saw it in the slideshow. Some detail loss around the edges and the sides, and also it's kind of hard to make out some of the details on the spec logo. Same thing on this photo I took indoors, just not nearly as bright as I would hope, and this one actually had some decent lighting in the background. Now the dynamic range is very good on the Key 2. These photos I took here with a nice sky in the background here when I was outside in the backyard for the 4th of July, they look very good as well. So for landscapes, well lit, and portrait, the Blackberry Key 2 is very good, but I think the low light performance might have actually regressed a little bit going from the Key 1 to the Key 2. And again, that could be because of the fact that they had to move the sensor, the main sensor, down a little bit in quality in order to accommodate the second one. So if you like the portrait mode, of course, and the zoom features that are afforded with that, it's a bonus. Otherwise, the camera is pretty similar to last year, still takes great photos in good lighting, but struggles a little bit in low light. The final thing, value, odds and ends, recommendation, etc. So a lot of people are going to ask about accessories. Blackberry has a few official cases coming out. There really aren't that many third-party accessories available for this phone, which is kind of a downside in my opinion. That's been one of the downsides of the Key 1 as well, but it's not really something that would stop me from purchasing this phone. If you own a Key 1 and you find that it's struggling to keep up with your multitasking, I would say the Key 2 is a great upgrade. Snapdragon 660 plus the 6 gigs of RAM give you really improved performance, gaming, all those sorts of things. And you also still, of course, get that same great battery life. Also, if you're someone who's a productivity beast, this keyboard, definitely the layout, a little more space there for you is going to be nice. And the speed key is going to be a huge deal with the productivity in terms of switching between apps when you're already in another app. It's way better than the Android default multitasking that you have built in to Android Oreo. So I would say if you have a Key 1 and you have those couple issues, it's definitely worth the upgrade. If you're considering a physical keyboard phone or you want an Android with great battery life and you use it as a primary business device, I can't recommend this phone enough. So anyway, guys, that's my full review of the Key 2. I'll drop my link below to the Key 1 review if you want to see some of the other things I touched on last year. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification icon so I can make future videos like this. Find me at dopetechdaily.com, Google+, Instagram, and Twitter. The links in the description. You can also find me writing at gadgethacks.com where I write about Android. I appreciate you guys checking it out, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching.